Hi guys, Rebecca Lee here. I recorded a video and it didn't get a whole lot of views, so I'm not too worried about it. Um, but I was talking about trigger warnings and what triggers actually are and that kind of thing. And I don't think I explained myself very well. So I just wanted to make a quick video to kind of explain what I was trying to say. Um, Here's the problem with what I'm seeing with trigger warnings and people saying, and I do this too, saying, that really triggered me, is that a lot of times when we say that really triggered me, what we're actually meaning is that really upset me. Because I came across this definition. It says popular and well-known definition of triggered is when someone gets offended or gets their feelings hurt, often used in memes to describe feminists or people with strong victimization. The use of this word through social media is generally ableist. Okay, so that's the kind of triggering I was talking about, is when somebody says that they were really triggered and what they actually mean is that they were really upset. This can be very upset. It can be, something that causes you to cry and feel really intense emotions. That's still not actually a trigger in the sense that this is the actual definition. I'm going to have to look up my source here and I'll put it below because I can't remember where I got this definition, but I will include that in the description below. But the actual definition of trigger is something that sets off a memory tape or flashback, transporting the person back to the event of his or her original trauma. Trauma in the form of flashbacks or overwhelming feelings of sadness, anxiety, or panic. The brain forms a connection between the trigger and the feeling with which it is associated with, and some triggers are quite innocuous. For example, a person who smelled incense, and I'm going to adapt this, but a person who smelled incense during a trauma might have a panic attack when he or she smells incense in a store. Triggers are very personal, and generally people with severe PTSD or anxiety can be triggered by everyday things. Okay, I'm not talking about this clinical kind of triggered. Okay, so something can trigger you to make you think of a trauma. And that's actually not what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about people getting offended and upset every time they see maybe somebody talking insensitively about a controversial issue. Maybe they're on one side of, for instance, the players taking a knee down during the national anthem. You could be on one side of that and say, hey, people have the freedom to do whatever they want. That's what the whole, this whole country was established on, freedom of expression and freedom of whatever. So you could be on that side of it, and you could get really triggered at somebody else who says, no, you need to, the flag is sacred and we need to, respect those who went before us and who died for our freedom. Anyway, you're on one side of the issue, they're on the other side of the issue. And just because it's emotionally upsetting doesn't mean that you've actually been triggered. But now we kind of understand that trigger warning means, hey, this could be upsetting to you. And so it's getting confusing. So anyway, my whole video was talking about how you can choose to be offended. I used the word triggered, and so I got some confusion there because I was told, you cannot choose when a trigger happens. Well, no, when a clinical trigger happens, I don't have any experience with that at all. But as I understand it, no, you can't determine when that trigger is going to happen. That's something that is just kind of, that's out of my league. That's not what I'm talking about. So anyway, I just watched a video, and I'm going to put a link to it. And I can't remember the gentleman's name. I'm so sorry, you guys. But he was talking about the reason that we suffer is not because of events, but it is because of the meaning that we attach to those events. So something happens and we decide what that means. In other words, he gave a really good example. He said, think of it this way. Okay, you go to bed at night. It's 11 o'clock at night. You're not planning on going out. You look out the window and it's raining. You're going to slip into bed and go to sleep. How do you feel about the rain? Well, probably you don't feel anything. You don't care. It's raining. You're inside. You're going to go to sleep anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay, now let's change it, and it's your wedding day. You've planned an outdoor wedding, and you get up in the morning and you look outside, and there's torrential rainstorm outside. Now how do you feel? You probably feel disappointed. You feel upset. He said, okay, now take a third scenario. It's your wedding day. You've planned an outdoor wedding. You look outside and you see the torrential rainfall, but in your culture, the more that it rains on your wedding day, the more blissfully happy you and your mate, whether you're man or woman, that's how much love you guys are going to share, is the amount of rain. Okay, now you're really happy that it's raining a lot because we are going to have such a blissfully happy marriage. So that kind of explains what he's talking about there. You have the event, which is the rain, and then you have the meaning that you attach to that event. So your suffering depends on what meaning you associate with it. And he gave a lot more examples, but when someone offends you, they're offending you because of the meaning that you're placing on their words. And this can be tricky, but with practice, you can learn to not associate meaning with their words. You know, if it's something that's important to you, it's a decision you have to make, then look at it and try to look at it factually without associating. I talk about this all the time. Don't judge things. And I think that's the same concept as not attaching meaning to something. When we don't place judgments on things, then we're not going to attach meaning to it, right? I'm doing this at night. I probably shouldn't, because my brain's kind of slows down towards evening. Anyway, I will post another video that hopefully explains myself a little bit better. But I just want to say that kind of triggering, you can retrain your brain so that you don't get triggered or, offended when someone says something really rude. You can assign a different meaning to what that person was saying and decide not to be offended. There's a lot of different techniques I use with this because sometimes, somebody says something hurtful and it's hard to separate what they said from the meaning that you're placing on it. And there's some things you can do to kind of help your emotions calm down enough that your logic can kick in and start to help you sort through that. One of the things I do is to have compassion first for myself for feeling the hurt. Wow, this is really hurtful. And just noticing that and feeling compassion for yourself. And then feeling compassion for that person, because even though you don't understand exactly where they're coming from, you can understand that they're having a human experience just as you are, and that they have an equal amount of pain and suffering. It's different for them. Everybody's path is different. But they have pain and suffering also that they're dealing with. So you can have compassion for them. And then when you maybe say a prayer that person will find happiness and joy, that person will find love and light, and that you will find love and light, then you can maybe come back to the subject, what was upsetting me, what was offending me, and you can go from there. and choose to not be offended. The examples I had given in the other one I thought was enough to explain what I meant by triggered, but I guess it wasn't. Was that there was a Crayola thing where people, Crayola named a blue crayon some creative name instead of calling it blue, and people were getting really upset about it because they said it was going to confuse children. I think that was their main complaint, but they were really over the top upset over this crayon. So that's what caused me to bring this up, is that we get upset too easily. And I think that we almost sometimes look for things to get upset about. And if there's not something out there to disagree with, we don't know what to do with ourselves. So this is a subject that I think needs more discussion. I need to look into it a little bit more. But give me your thoughts on it. Tell me what you think. The other example I gave, my son is a radio show host for the morning show in Jamestown, North Dakota. And I'm very proud of him. And he said that he did a story on some man who went to the hospital with his wife. She was having their baby. And while they were at the hospital in the maternity ward, he was selling drugs to visitors that were coming to the maternity ward. And my son said this man is so stupid to have done this. I don't know. I think he called him a moron or an idiot or something. Anyway, he was basically saying, why would this guy do this? And it was a tiny little segment that he did. And he got a response from someone saying, that's really insensitive of you because a lot of people have a problem with drug addiction. And he's like, well, I didn't say anything about drug addiction. I was actually talking about the guy selling drugs. So it's examples like this that make me think, and I see this over and over again, where people get upset and they weren't even the one offended. Like, this person that got offended, I assume, is not a drug dealer. And if they are, well, I think most of you would not sympathize with them a whole lot for being upset at my son's story. But somebody who has a drug addiction should not have been offended by his story because it had nothing to do. Anyway, I hope you get, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you get what I'm saying. It's kind of getting out of hand. I had an incident in a Target parking lot where I was pulling into a space and there was a cart in front of me, and it was just a little piece too far into my space, and I had a blonde moment, and I thought, well, I'm just going to park and I'll just nudge the basket into the empty space because, there was a pull through. Had the basket not been there, I could have just pulled through. So I said, I'll just push the basket a little bit and then I'll get out and put the basket away. Well, that was not the smartest decision because when I pushed the basket, it rolled into somebody else's car. But I seriously crawled up on that thing, okay? And it so slowly rolled over to the car. So anyway, I get out. And I'm going, I haven't even been able to close my door yet. And a man and his wife, like a whole aisle over, saw what I had done. And the man comes over and he grabs the basket and he shoves it and puts it into the little basket corral. And they just started ripping into me about how disrespectful I was and I better pay for that damage that I just caused on the car. There was no damage, guys. I looked over and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't see any damage. Is this your car? And they're like, no, that's just so disrespectful. You better wait for the owner and we're going to call the police. I was like, holy cow. You would have thought I ran over their puppy. What happened? So this is what I'm talking about. It's like we're waiting for someone to give us a chance to express our anger and for us to be offended. So it's a huge issue. And we can choose to get offended, or we can choose to just let it go. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, I really am stopping now. I always say that and then I go on for about 5 more minutes. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a beautiful night if you're watching this at night. If you're watching this during the day, have a beautiful day. But no matter what time you're watching it, have an amazing now. Really enjoy your moments, because I tell you what, having mindfulness will help relieve a lot of the stress and tension that tends to build up all around you from all the negative sources. If you can just learn to sit with yourself and be mindful of your surroundings, it's healing, it's therapeutic. I preach mindfulness all the time. So anyway, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.